Planning a fishing trip shouldn't feel like a full-time job. With fishingbooker.com, you can find and book the perfect fishing trip within minutes. Fishingbooker.com connects you with trusted fishing captains around the world. Booking is fast, easy, and secure, with access to verified customer reviews, loyalty rewards, and around-the-clock customer support. Everything you need to book with confidence is in one place. So head to fishingbooker.com and start planning your next fishing adventure today.
Every sip of Coca-Cola brings you closer to the excitement of the FIFA World Cup 26. Because nothing compares to the joy. So grab a Coke and drink in the FIFA World Cup 26. No purchase necessary. 13 plus in 50 U.S. states and D.C. with a web-enabled device. Ends March 1st with 8 entry periods. Rules at cokeurl.com/soccerrules.
All right, welcome back to the Survival and Basic Badass Podcast, Kevin and Chuck. Today, we're going to talk about AR-15s. I'm in a bunch of like builder groups and things like that, and people always talking about new stuff. And one of the guys was like, "I have 1,500 to spend to build an AR. What do I do?" And I started writing out like the big our response in the comments. I'm like, "You could do this, you could do that." And I was like, that'd be interesting. Let's put one together. And everything we talk about, I have. I've used all these products. There are like one or two changes between which gun, but if I was putting together a gun for 1,500, this is exactly what I would do. We're going to go through and kind of compare some stuff and talk about different options. And if your goals are a little bit different, what you might want to upgrade or downgrade, that kind of stuff. But I wanted a complete list of how I would do it from scratch. We've done an episode about what I thought was quality parts and not quality parts, and where are you getting your value for your money. And I got to say, there are certain things you can do to upgrade that make a big difference in how they feel, the comfort, and, how it shoots. It does make a difference, but not a dramatic difference. I think trigger maybe makes a dramatic difference. But aside of that, I don't know that there's any real stuff. Kevin, you're excited to learn about this stuff, right? Get some new.
I'm ready to party. Yeah.
Ready to party. All right. So, yeah, I know it's not exactly everyone's bag, but I think when it comes to home defense, the AR-15 is really the perfect kind of weapon. It's versatile. You can move around the house with it. Whereas, like normally you say, "Oh, I grab a handgun or a shotgun or whatever." Mm-hmm. But as far as, multiple things, I'm talking about home defense as far as like inside and outside the home. I'm not not necessarily, although short barrel rifles are a thing. I'm just saying as far as inside, people act like it's too long, it's whatever. Well, there's ways around that. So anyway, these are always one of the things too that I get passionate about. So it always makes for a more fun episode, even if it's the monotony of, discussing parts and different things. But yeah, no, I own everything that we're going to discuss, and I've tried and used, and I've used a lot of different parts. It's actually weird. One of the ways I actually got into it, me and Kevin, obviously, were both in the Navy, and we're exposed to different weapons over the years. But when I got out, we started this podcast, and we had a sponsored tac pack that did tactical equipment, and they used to just send us all these like AR-15 parts to try out. It was kind of cool, different stuff like that. We'd get into it and we would try all the different things, and I just ended up with so many parts that I was like, yeah, we're gonna have to find a home for all these gun parts, and I started putting them all together and, getting excited about it. So I started building, my own version of things and, trying all the different stuff. And then we did an episode on AR-15 triggers, and we got like one of every trigger out there, and we compared them all and how they work together. And, and it's nice to actually have that sampling. Now, I go to an event called The Gathering. Uh, if you guys ever show up there, we could try and meet up. It'd be cool. But it's from Palmetto State Armory that they showcase all the different manufacturers. It's kind of like SHOT Show, really, but you get hands on. Like they give you, I think you pay like $75 to get in the door, but they give you like 10 rounds at each place. And if you're there on like the Friday, it's a Friday, Saturday event. If you show up on Friday, there's nobody really there, and you can just shoot all day long for that $75 on their ammo. And you get to try out all the latest night vision, the latest optics, the latest suppressors, barrels, grips. And it really gives you that hands-on where you get to know everything. So anyway, I know I took a minute there, but we can get into what is the best AR for $1,500. Like, what can you do? That's how I wanted to frame it. You're not allowed to really promote the sale of gun stuff on YouTube, but we can definitely review it and talk about what's key here. So one of the big things you want to jump into when it comes to that is you start out with the lower. That's the part with the serial number. That's the part that people think of, when you build a gun. And absolutely, you could buy complete garbage, I think, for $3.99 if you catch the right sale. You can get a complete AR, and it'll be like Radical firearms are the only ones I ever see that cheap. I think Bear Creek sometimes has some stuff. I think that's an upgrade from Radical. They're actually pretty cool. There's some other different. Palmetto will have something in I think they're around the $5.99, $6.99 neighborhood anymore, for even when you catch a sale. So that's something to look at. But if you want something that's really quality, I think you're in that $1,500 neighborhood. The big things you notice, right? To me, an AR-15 is a gun that you're going to use for 100 yards or less. You're not really the long range shooter. Now, should you be able to shoot very accurately with a AR-15 at 200 yards? Yes, I think so. It's just you start losing effectiveness with the round at, the greater distances with an AR, that it's not really the right choice. Really beyond 300 yards, you're really pushing it. So getting all dramatic about having the perfect barrel or the perfect is, to me, a little over the top. You need a quality barrel that's going to last, that's durable, but almost any barrel should shoot decent at 100 yards. One of the things that will affect your accuracy at 100 yards is how sloppy things are together. And you want to like fitment. And that's where a lot of these parts really come in, is the quality, where things kind of close together and don't feel junky. That's a big thing. And the feeling junky kind of is junky when it, that stuff. And again, I don't think you need to spend a lot on optics when you're at 100 yards. Now, being able to acquire a target quickly, the optic does come in to, play there a little bit. We'll talk about that. Sadly, when I put together the whole $1,500 budget, I couldn't even get an optic on there for $1,500. But we're going to talk about that too, and we'll cover a little bit of what we can do. So anyway, bottom line comes down to a lower. You can buy a complete lower, which is the pistol grip, the trigger, the everything. You can buy it for $199 from Palmetto and get one of theirs. But the thing is, when you have resale for an AR-15, people look at what brand it is and the quality of the parts and stuff in there. you might want to select a lower that's more premium, and you can do that in the like $200 neighborhood. I know Yankee Hill makes a really nice lower. I own this one for they said like I see it around the 250 neighborhood, 275. Um, Sons of Liberty Gunworks, they sell the premium ones, the billet for like I think they're more expensive, like 320 is what I just saw when I went to look for them. The 320, they also have a 115 version from Sons of Liberty Gunworks. That's going to really buy you the same selling power. So that's kind of neat, but it's hard to have the right plan. And so 115 on Sons of Liberty if you buy the non-billet kind of, nice quality. But and they also I saw there's a Sons of Liberty has a complete lower just like Bravo Company 520 has complete lower. Sons of Liberty I saw for 590 had a complete lower. So any of those you're going to get the buffer tube and all that stuff. Yeah, it was 570 for the complete from Sons of Liberty. Now you could also kind of go better than Palmetto, but not awesome for Stag makes $59 lowers, $109 lowers. Um, Aero, I really like Aero. People dog Aero Precision. They have you can buy a match set of the upper and the lower that you put together and you get that nice fitment for 115. So that's an option. Um, I put a price list in the show notes and a breakdown so you can see exactly what I did and what I put together. But anyway, when you do a lower, there are a couple things. The first thing is I like to change the grip. The grip is like how good anything is going to feel, and it just ends up working out. Hogue makes a grip that's just rubber and nice and really soft. Um, I gotta say for fitment, I don't think there's anything better than Hogue. It's Hogue. They're about 25 bucks, so it's not an expensive upgrade, and I guarantee you, if you're rocking the mil spec hard plastic, pistol grip there, that $25 is gonna make your gun feel like a, $200 upgrade. Absolutely, I'm certain. The next biggest upgrade, and again, it's part of the lower, is changing the trigger. I like Timney makes a great trigger. Now this thing's pretty expensive. They call it the Timney. I don't know. It's just their AR-15 trigger, I guess, and it's about 173. I keep seeing it for, but this we tested like 10 different triggers in our trigger episode. You guys can go back to it. This thing's 3.5 pounds, and it's just awesome. They have a premium one that's more expensive than the 173 option, but I gotta say, the 73, I think it's the Impact AR, I think is what they call it. That's the by far. Now, I will say, I just looked, there's something called the Partisan trigger. That's actually a forced reset trigger, and it's from the company is Partisan Triggers, and I guess the trigger is called the Disruptor. I wanna check out some videos on YouTube. I've always been reluctant, like, I have a, Franklin Arms binary trigger, but as a regular trigger, it's kind of a junky trigger for a single shot, so I don't want that in my go-to gun. This one is bragging the one from, Partisan is bragging that it's a 3.5 pound pull on the regular trigger, and then it's a forced reset, which you guys know people think is mimicking or very close to full auto, in the way that it feels. It doesn't by definition fall into a machine gun because I guess it bumps the trigger forward as you're using it, but it's pretty, impressive, the videos I've seen So I'm looking to get that upgrade and see what I can do, but they're like 275, so I'm trying to work out a free one. I sent some emails. Figure we need to do a review, you know. But that's the absolute next go-to on replacement parts is upgrading the trigger. Like I said, pistol grip, $25, Timney trigger, 173. Those upgrades are going to bring you light years ahead. And you could put that on your Palmetto AR and be very happy. I'm just kind of stepping up the quality a little bit more. Like I said, having that fancy brand name is going to make all your efforts turn it into a $2,000 gun, a $3,000 gun at resale, which is, very nice. The next thing, the easiest thing when you upgrade from the lower, we got that worked out, is to look at the upper. Now the upper, again, that brand name is not going to be in somebody's face, although a lot of them do have markings and different things that would, give away who made it. I actually, as a base, if I was looking for quality, Aero Precision has the M4E1, and this thing, they call it the M4E1 Atlas. It's $579, and that doesn't come with a bolt carrier group or a charging handle, is what I've seen. Obviously you can shop these around. That was the best price I saw when I was looking yesterday. So it's not cheap. You can buy the same thing with a bolt carrier and a charging handle from Palmetto for $299. But when I priced this whole $1,500 AR, in my example, I used the $579 from Aero. But again, if you're looking to include an optic for your $1,500, here's where I would drop down to the $299 version from Palmetto, and you could, thin out your budget right there. Next, what I did is you could, now again, any of these barrels, that Aero barrel is going to be great and you're going to have no problem with it. If you were kind of a snob and you're telling me, oh, the barrel matters, blah, blah, blah. Sons of Liberty has fighting barrels for $169, or they have match barrels for $320. When you look at my price list that I put in the show notes, actually here, I can bring it up. What I did is instead of buying a complete lower, you could, if you're willing to do the work of putting all the little parts together, you could buy the $115, lower from Sons of Liberty. You could buy the blaster kit, which is all the little screws and things like that. The blaster kit, that's $54. The Hogue stock, so again, not getting a complete lower, for $59, but the Hogue stock feels really nice. The Magpul build kit is $123. And then the Sons of Liberty fighting barrel, $169. That puts you at like $520 for that whole lower with an upgraded barrel. So that's an option. But any of you who've changed a barrel in an upper know that it's some work. It's actually a commitment and things you're, looking to do. Kevin, would you take on building a whole thing, or is that like a little, it's nice to go buy it off the shelf, right?
Well, it is nice to buy it off the shelf, but I think you have a much better understanding of the equipment you're using when you put it together yourself, And if you buy it off the shelf, you want to take it apart and put it back together anyway.
There you go. Right. They show those guys breaking them down in the Marine videos, but I don't think they break them down like I break them down, like really, hardcore. But that's the thing is, like, every time I get any kind of upgrade and I have to pull apart some new section I haven't touched, that makes it, that you get a little more familiar and whatever. I understand, like with guns, in your mind, you're like, oh, if I put it together wrong, it's going to blow up in my face or whatever. There are definitely a lot of videos and stuff. So what I did when it comes to ARs, I looked up when I purchased it on Amazon. It's it's $16 right now, this book. It's called Build Your Own AR-15 Rifle by David Strauss. And it shows the breakdown of every pin. It shows the breakdown of where everything goes, the fitment, how to put it together, what the torque is if you're putting the barrel back on, that kind of stuff. There's a lot of, it gives the complete insight, and it just makes it that you're comfortable, doing it where you're not going to second guess. Could you figure it out just taking it apart and looking at it? Yeah, I think you could. But, that way you have a little more peace of mind with it. So again, Sons of Liberty does have a match barrel, which I think match is a 1/2 inch at 100 yards. Is they kind of guarantee you're not going to have more deviation from shot to shot with that. That's 320 from Sons of Liberty. But the thing is, you might get that quality from most barrels. It's just they kind of guarantee it. You kind of want to start out with what you got and say, hey, do I have any issues? And again, are you really going to make up that difference with your training and with practicing shooting? I feel like you are. I feel like you're going to solve that. That problem really comes from experience at 100 yards. And honestly, a 1/2 inch, maybe you're trying to shoot the playing card out of somebody's hand. I don't know what they do. That would be wrong, obviously. That is not what you're trying to do.
Shoot the button off the top of the baseball cap. That's how you practice.
That kind of no, but if you're looking for that kind of precision, then maybe the match barrel is an upgrade you want to look at. And again, you could go through my list and see where you can cut corners. Like I said, you could really just do that whole upper from Aero and just leave it as is. Now, if you bought it from Aero Precision, you also need a bolt carrier group. Again, somewhere you could save. Toolcraft, they usually have it like Palmetto for like $69 when I see a really good sale, $89. I've seen a bolt carrier and an optic for $119 from Palmetto. The big one that Palmetto's always got on sale, this one's $89 right now. It's like that. I feel like I'm in dangerous territory right now, the way I'm talking. But I'm just saying, when you look around, these aren't, there's no links, no affiliates, no nothing. I'm just telling you what they do. They have, it's like an $89 optic. It's the Strike Fire 2 from Vortex. I've seen that for sale with a bolt carrier group. And I think I've actually seen it with a charging handle and a bolt carrier group, like as a set for like $129. It's not really a big thing. That's something that, you might want to look at, because then you're in the optic. For me, that's just a red dot thing. It doesn't have any magnification, anything like that. But again, that 100 yards, you really don't need magnification. It's you're a red dot kind of guy at 100 yards. And so there's a lot of things to look at there. While we're on optics, there's a company, if you're kind of a snob, and I sometimes am, EOTech. They have the 512, I believe it's called. This one I've seen for $399. There's the EXPS30 from EOTech. This thing is badass, but it's $815. So you decide, where your money's better spent. Yeah, if you got money and money's easy for you, then $815 is kind of cool. I haven't gotten to one of those yet. I have gotten to one of these, and I have about 4 of these. But you kind of work your budget and you see what you can do. But again, you could get in that $89 area. If I was building a quality rifle, though, I got to say, cutting out on the bolt carrier group is probably not the best place. Like, this to me is kind of your bottom. Sons of Liberty bolt carrier groups are usually my go-to, but they're $179. Just make sure you clean it, oil it. That's a Hogue grip I was talking about. Just make sure you clean it and, keep it oiled, keep it nice, pull it apart, look at it. I would say like have an extra firing pin somewhere just in case, but I've never had a firing pin break. I've heard of other people do it. Maybe you're like, oh, you don't spend enough time shooting or whatever it is, but I've never had an issue with that. So that's, not something I would worry about. Muzzle device at the end. Again, you could get away with the A2 flash hider, which there's that's what came on your like M16 in the military or whatever. That's your standard go-to is the muzzle device at the end of that one. But this upgrade from the Gamma, again, it supposedly deflects the air and keeps a little, it basically gets rid of any kind of rise at the end when you shoot, because it's how the gas is dispersed at the end. Makes it a little more of a steady shot. I was buying these for like $39. Now they're like 81 is the cheapest I found when I went everywhere. And I was like, damn, I'm not even 81. I don't know. I would have a hard time getting that. But I did figure that into the budget on the 15. So that is an option that, you could do. My actual budget on this, the one that, I basically laid out here was $1,524. And if you did the upgrade with the bigger barrel, but you did all the work yourself on the lower, it, I think, would end up being $11 more than that. So $1,535, and that's without any kind of optic. So, that's the other thing. The Strike Fire for $89, I gotta say, is not bad. I kind of like iron sights from Magpul. You don't need to get too crazy. There's a lot of good things. Another thing I want to talk about, we had the grips, right? They talk about custom grips. I did find there's a lot of guys that'll just make them. You see them on like Etsy and things like that. I found a company called Lambda Grips, and they're from 120 to 59, 69, somewhere in there. But they were pretty awesome. They're all like engraved. I mean, he probably has it, with a 3D printer type thing. I don't really know how they do this kind of thing, but they do runs of different ones. They had a lot of really cool ones. I know they have that. What was that? There's a TV show, Shooter, like Marky Mark movie there. They had Shooter, the TV show with that Ryan Philippe or whatever his name is. And they have these like the four, I don't know, they had the four night rifles that were all cool. And basically what, set them apart was they all had like a fancy grip. There was like an ace of spades and, ace of clubs, ace of hearts and whatever. And so they made 4 of these premium rifles and sent them out. You upgrade the grip and you can make it kind of its own unique thing. That's kind of cool for $120. I'm just saying that was, something neat that makes it like feel special to you. But I got to say, to me, it's the comfort and how it feels. And I got to say, I've never held a grip that, besides these Hogue grips, that feel better than that. So that's something you may want to look into. I think I covered all the cool parts. The Hogue grip comes like straight, like the like traditional military ones, but they also have it with the like finger grip kind of, where it has the notches for the fingers. So that's, you again, that's a preference thing. You do what you want. But yeah, any AR-15, your number one focus should be reliability, because that's really it has to shoot every time. It has to eject, the rounds. We didn't talk about by getting a complete lower or a complete upper, you don't get a gas block, but they sell adjustable gas blocks that you can kind of tune it for your own. That's again like a $30 upgrade you could, work in there if you wanted to, where you adjust the airflow and it basically changes the recoil from the bolt carrier moving back and forth. that's a real thing. You can adjust it. They actually say, the way it ejects the bullet or the shell, ejects the shell out the side, the angle of that, you can match it up so that it's just tuned perfect. You can also do that by changing your buffer weight in the buffer tube in the back. Again, all that kind of can be addressed, and they talk about it in that Build Your Own AR book. So that's kind of a neat thing you can do. Another thing I didn't talk about is charging handles. In my example, I don't think I did a charging handle. No, yes, Presma charging handle. So there's a company, Presma, Presma. They do one. It basically has the double-sided. On the screen, I'm actually showing one from Sons of Liberty Gunworks. Theirs is like $120. There's a Radian Raptor is the company that basically make those. The one from Style from Sons of Liberty. And then I don't know if they're licensing and selling them to like Sons of Liberty. I see them from Wilson. I see them from other companies. They all look the exact same, except they have the markings from the company. My guess is they're licensing it from Radian Raptor, but it could be that they just ripped off the design and they're just stealing it. They changed it a little bit, and who knows. But anyway, those are anywhere from 64 to 120. But those you're really just getting because they look cool. I got to say, the single side, not the ambidextrous, but the single side simple one for $10 is going to work just as good as the others. Although with the double pull, it does feel nice in your hand. But I got to say, I bought this $16 one from Premsa, whatever they are, Presma, and they're like $16. They feel just as good as the premium ones. I do have premium ones. I have from Radian Raptor. I have the Sons of Liberty one that you're seeing here. I like those. It makes me happy to see like the little skull when I pull it out and be like, yeah, like pretty much you can put a skull on anything and then market it to me and I'll be like, oh yeah, I'd pay an extra 40 for that. You stamped on that little skull on there, but that's just my own, preference. But yeah, I think bolt carrier to me matters more than a barrel. As far as, the quality of the part when I'm thinking 100 yards. But, you do you, because bolt carrier group is going to ensure your quality and function a lot more than the other is, than the barrel. But, you do you. Why not buy all of it premium and then live your best life? You don't even need to make that house payment if you got a quality AR. A lot of times you have till like the 15th of the month to pay that, right, Kevin?
That's right.
And sometimes, you can carry that out for a month or two and they're not going to take away your house and you're still rocking a better gun.
Mm-hmm.
You have to make your priorities.
That's right.
I'm just saying. Kevin, but I would say if you do any modification or build anything, you should consult a professional. Isn't that how things work, Kevin?
Yeah,
that you should
absolutely.
Be a proper gunsmith.
Absolutely. Or you could just
or
be
just don't be a dumbass.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. See, that's what I always recommend on this podcast is learn to be the professional so you can do things yourself. And that's how you up your game. That's really the way to do it. Now, I know that, building the perfect gun isn't maybe everybody's cup of tea, but it should be. That's what I can tell you. If it's not, maybe you're making the wrong choices. And if it's not legal where you live, again, maybe you're making the wrong choices. Absolutely. Tell me about the better, lowers or the deals, anything like that. Put them in the comments. That'd be awesome. You guys know that you can always support our sponsors on our website. We link to a lot of companies that might be able to get you the things you need. If you are curious about the prices, you think they're unrealistic or whatever, I saw all these prices yesterday. So February, 20th, something like that. February 20th, all these prices were current. But if you want to text me, or message me, sorry, or, reach out to us at preppingbadass@gmail.com. I would be happy to let you know where you could find such things. It's just eBay or YouTube doesn't permit that. So, like I said, that could be a private talk amongst friends, that we could have. Also, if you put something in the comments, I mean, I can't stop what you guys put there. There are a lot of lowers that I also would consider premium or cool, like Wilson Combat, or there's a lot of other good brands. Griffin makes a decent one. Believe it or not, Franklin Armory makes a decent, solid lower. Any of the billet stuff, you pay a little more for. It's like, you're in that $200 neighborhood instead of the $39 neighborhood. But again, it's really about fitment and how it was put together. You can get a good one by buying a cheap one, and it might end up being good. It's just you're kind of guaranteed that quality control when you buy a more premium. It's one of those things. But to be honest, AR-15s are meant to be functional, universal, equipment. So absolutely put notes in the comments. We really appreciate it. I did one of the things. I'm looking at some of the comments now. One of the things I did was an Adams Arms piston kit for the gas, and I was worried about a suppressed one, and I actually used that with like a thermal scope and a suppressor if I'm out, trying to do things. There's a lot of different, cool things out there is all I'm saying.
Well, I think there's a lot to be said about having a firearm that you're comfortable with. May not be the AR-15 for everybody, but if you fired an AR-15, you probably will find it is. In my opinion, it's the best rifle you're gonna get for home defense, or for shooting that goddamn fox that keeps eating your shit.
Yeah, exactly. So I did check out some things. So there were questions about, I need to get off my butt and review a partisan trigger. I will say one is coming. One is in the mail. And
All right.
I was worried, though. My neighbor's an ATF agent, so I was going to go see what the deal is there. Because that's one of those forced reset triggers, or one of those that are banned every other day, and then they're not.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something that, you may want to look at. Palmetto, somebody said that they had an extractor break, and yeah, I mean, anything is possible. I have several Palmetto guns and gun parts on different things. I've never had a problem. The only thing I've ever had that was real crap was I had something from Anderson. Anderson is garbage. And I've seen those radical firearms be pretty garbage. But personally, they usually take a beating. I really like, and the Sons of Liberty bolt carrier groups, you feel the quality with it, but it is premium, I mean, you are paying for it. Like I said, I think I only found them on their website, maybe, and they were $179, but that's something that, you shop around, you find the right deal. I definitely bought a few of those. They come like wrapped in paper, and they're nice. But yeah, you got to look around, find the deal. And again, it's what's right for your budget. That's really what comes down to. I've definitely bought a bunch of those like crappy tool craft ones and had no problems. So, and those I always see at like Palmetto and stuff. I don't even know, or because they were hard to come by for a while. But yeah, there's a lot of different things. If I was picking what I thought was the most quality one, it would be the Sons of Liberty out of all the ones I've used. And I've used probably 10 different brands, but it's hard to say. Anyway, feel free to message me. We would be happy to discuss it. These are things I get passionate about and like to talk about. I know we hadn't done an AR episode in a while, so I wanted to get back into it. And so there's a lot of neat things out there. So, look around, talk to me, put your thoughts in the comments though. I mean, if you think something's better, you find a great deal, there's nothing wrong with sharing that information with your fellow friends. I do like free guns. They're always the best. So with that, I would say stay safe, and we'll talk to you guys next week.